not really surprised that Samsung's playing it safe. When will they ever not play it safe again? That's a question to think about. Take it away.
Maybe with this Edge model.
I feel like Marques started that off as like podcasty talking to us and then just turned into a video at the end.
That could have been the video.
It felt like his video script by the end. Like, let me know right below that like button.
Yeah. Marques, I will let you know in person.
I am pre-recording this and sending it to the pod folks because it's a few days before normal recording, and I have now seen and held and used briefly the new S25 lineup from Samsung. All of the ones that we know about anyway. S25, S25 Plus, and S25 Ultra. And I have some thoughts, so I'm going to leave them here for y'all to react to. First up is the designs. They're the same. We've had some talks about this on the podcast earlier, some leaks and rumors and stuff like that, but it turns out most of it was true. From the outside, these phones are almost indistinguishable from the last ones. They have these new colors that are like gray, blue, silver, and black. Like they're extremely tame colors. And dimensions-wise, shapes-wise, materials-wise, for all intents and purposes, they're the same phones. I think for the base two phones, the only way to tell them apart is they moved the 5G antenna to the other side of the phone. Really subtle. For the Ultra, there's bigger rings around the cameras and slightly thinner bezels, so it's technically a 6.9-inch screen now instead of 6.8. But otherwise, new colors, and that's it. A little boxier. You know when phones used to do S updates and they were totally shameless about how, hey, this is just a spec bump with the same design and that's what we're doing this year? That's basically what's happening. This is a Galaxy S24s. So that's the first part. I'm curious if you guys have thoughts on designs not changing, because I've always thought about change for the sake of change kind of getting annoying, and like you end up losing your identity. You want to sort of narrow in on what you like as an aesthetic and repeat it and iterate on it. This is just, it's just the same. So I'm curious about that. But anyway, number two is there are new specs. They're also pretty minor though. It's just the new Snapdragon 8 Elite 4 Galaxy chip across all of these phones. And there's 12 gigs of RAM in the base phones now. So all of them have 12 gigs of RAM across the board, which is nice. Obviously, these new AI models will need more RAM. And the Snapdragon 8 Elite 4 Galaxy, I have to do some benchmarks. We got to test and get the phones into review. I don't know how different it's going to be versus the other Snapdragon 8 Elites, but I assume it's going to be a pretty great chip because we love that chip. But no IP69, no ultra-fast charging, no bigger batteries, no silicon carbide, no brighter display, no new cameras, no nothing. It's just a new chip and more RAM. So those are the new specs. Everything else that's new about these phones is AI and software. So I'll link the video below with my first impressions where I demo some of these features. And maybe if you guys want to watch that, then you'll see some of them. Maybe insert a clip. But there are some that are kind of useful. There's this new assistant that is only triggered by holding the power button. There is no voice command for it, but it's sort of a combo of Gemini and Bixby. There's also a new AI select tool, which if you forget about it, you could just never use it on your phone. But if you do use it, there's some cool stuff like making GIFs of videos instantly and summarizing articles instantly if you want to select them with AI select. But in general, like, this stuff is going to come to the S24 series. I'm pretty confident. Samsung wouldn't tell me that, but just based on what I know about how good those phones have been and the history that Samsung has with, 7 years of software support, which is great, by the way. That's a pro of getting a Samsung phone. I feel like, a lot of this stuff is going to come to the S24s and maybe even S23s. Now, I hope that's true because Apple didn't do that with Apple Intelligence. They would say that their new chip unlocks this stuff, and I'm sure there's some part of the Snapdragon 8 Elite 4 Galaxy that Samsung is going to tie to this AI stuff, but hopefully as much of this as possible comes to S24. And so that's basically it. A pretty minor update of these new phones. And, if you're Samsung, how can you really blame them, right? Like the S24 is sold really well for them. They won awards. My smartphone of the year was the S24 Ultra, and a lot of people liked it. But also that phone was kind of close to the year before that, which was honestly pretty similar to the year before that. So it does kind of feel stale. It's a good, boring phone. It's zero risk for Samsung, and therefore zero risk for most of the target demographic for this phone, but I'll leave it at that. Let me know what your thoughts are. Were you hoping for more? Were you expecting more? Or honestly just not really surprised that Samsung's playing it safe? When will they ever not play it safe again? That's a question to think about. Take it away.
Maybe with this Edge model.
I feel like Marques started that off as like podcasty talking to us and then just turned into a video at the end.
That could have been the video.
It felt like his video script by the end. Like, let me know right below that like button.
Yeah. Marques, I will let you know in person.
Can I do my first really, really quick thought right from one of the first things he said?
Sure.
Okay. The S25 Ultra is very slightly different looking, and he said more boxy. And I would argue, especially looking straight on, I think it feels less boxy.
Right.
I think what he's saying is that now that the rails are more squared off, that part feels a little boxier, but looking straight on, the old one pretty much had 90-degree angles in the corners, where this is much rounder on the corners, and I do think looks nicer. It is so minimal, but it kind of has
I liked the box.
iPad-y vibes to it, which I like this new one better.
All right.
Super, super minimal.
I would like to see it in person. I would like to respond to Marques Brownlee, who said maybe change for change's sake is a bad thing.
And
I disagree with you because in the golden age of Android phones, especially with Nexus devices, who the hell knows what it was going to look like the next year? You know, we got LG, we got Huawei, we got Samsung, we got all these manufacturers making random stuff. It was great. It was amazing. I loved it. And I don't think anyone is excited about these phones. This is, you know, I understand why Samsung's doing it, but if you live in the United States, it is so dominated by Apple and Samsung, and they have both of them have released the same phone for 4 years now. And we just really, really need some mix-up in here.
This is a perfect example of when you kind of become the default phone, especially to the people outside of all of you listening to this podcast. Yeah. You can be safe. And I'll be honest, even I listen to this podcast. I live this podcast. Wow. I bought the S24 because it was kind of the boring, safe phone. And I just knew it was going to do what I wanted it to. And I decided not to take a risk, and the price was good for it. And also Samsung's trade-in deals are always like of the best trade-in deals. Always look for those. So it's not the worst thing, but it is the safe thing, and it's far less fun to talk about.
Right. Yeah, it's difficult. So like Marques kind of already went over the high-level details of the entire event and all of the phones, but we can talk about them briefly. It's just so hard to talk about because the S25 and S25 Plus are basically the same phone as the S24, S24 Plus. You're not really getting a lot more new. You're just getting that new chipset and some of these new AI features. Something to note that The Verge put out an article about is that the Ultra, the S Pen no longer can be used to take photos. And they also got rid of the little magic wand feature, and they cited that nobody was using them.
Correct.
I could hear that. I think that taking photos with it was still very useful, although I think a lot of people probably just used the gestures because they have a lot of ways to take selfies. I feel like every year they need to come up with a new way to take a selfie.
You can do it with a Galaxy Watch as well.
Yeah, or you can like put your palm out and it starts the countdown. So, you know, I get it, but it is a little bit sad to see.
Yeah, it does seem like so that's one thing that's changed. The changes are mostly in the S25 Ultra.
Yeah.
And what that is very slight visual change. Because of that visual change and smaller bezels, we do go from 6.8 to 6.9 Quad HD AMOLED, 120 hertz. Cool. The ultra wide camera goes from 12 megapixels to 50 megapixels.
Okay.
And they talked a lot about that and how it's better macro photos, better ultra wide photos and video. That's all fun. I believe there's the new glass on the front, ceramic Corning Gorilla
2,
Armor 2
or something.
Whatever. So
I don't think that's the one, sure.
I don't know. I'm so at that point in it, they had said like this next gen glass is the most durable ever, and I realized that every tech company out there needs some new vocabulary because we can't just say most advanced ever every single year for
Yeah.
every single update.
Yeah.
Sure as hell can.
Well,
It's
a lot
so
of the time
boring
there's
now.
there's an inverse relationship between shatter resistant and scratch resistant, and a lot of the times on a TikTok cycle they'll just make the next version more shatter resistant but not talk about how it's less scratch resistant and vice versa, and they just go back and forth forever. So, I don't know. I think a big part of the reason that it's probably more durable as well is because of the shape and because there's less of the screen bleeding over the edge. When Apple switched the phone to be square with the iPhone, they also said ceramic shield. And sure, you might have some of those ceramic elements inside of it, whatever. Most of that durability came from the fact that now it was squared off. So, okay, we can talk about some other stuff. Pricing, we've got $799.
Yeah, that was something we didn't have. I don't believe even in the briefing for Marques' video has pricing in it.
I don't think so.
Nope.
So the base model of the standard S25 starts at $799. The Plus starts at $999, and the Ultra starts at $1299.
I can talk about one thing that I know you'll be interested in.
Yeah.
And I only know this because of fellow Qi2 ally Ben Shun on 9to5 Google right before this came out confirms that S25 is ready for Qi2, but not Qi2 inside of the phone. He had a great article called Galaxy S25 is ready for Qi2, but there's a problem with MagSafe accessories and just about a bunch of different accessories. It looks like they have the very typical stand that can hold your phone, your watch, and charge your earbuds or your ring. Actually, wow, this can do all four, it looks like. But yeah, so Qi2 ready.
No.
Which means, in case you haven't listened to us complain about this for the last month, it means there will be accessories that are Qi2/MagSafe, whatever, magnetically compatible, but it does not mean that the magnets are inside of the phone.
So they'll have Qi2 ready cases. Well, I lost that bet.
Well, it's funny though, because these ones that they have are clear, and there's also D-Brand, which is a channel sponsor, by the way, has a clear case with a magnet on the back. Marques and I made the joke that pretty much the only way you can tell people you have the S25 lineup is by buying a clear case, because the colors are the only new thing that really looks any different from the series before.
That is true.
So go on and grab one of those.
Mini rant about Qi2 ready.
Do
Have
it.
already done this, but I just want to say now it's just a way for them to make more money on the cases.
Yeah. Well, and so Qi
accessories.
Does Qi have to license this to cases? Qi2 ready, right?
Yeah.
Seems like a good way for Qi to make even more licensing
Yeah.
money to all case manufacturers.
Yeah.
And etc.
So many bait and switches. I'm sad.
Thanks for watching this clip. That was us sort of recapping the Samsung event. We are about to file a missing persons report for Bixby. No, not seen in quite some time. So if you have seen Bixby, please contact your local constable. Thank you. And like and subscribe.